that they needed to go take care of. So, hey, a couple things real quickly. If you got saved last night, would you raise your hand? Cool. Hey, congratulations. Congratulations. Anybody else? Oh, all right, man. Congratulations. You don't have to be shy about, well, you're shy in general, but man, congratulations, dude. That's really awesome. Last night was super awesome for a whole bunch of reasons. One of which, the salvations. The second, I could see a moose. Yeah. Brother Anthony, who was with you? Robert. Brother Anthony and Robert. Well, it's tough to call one brother not the other. Like, you want to say? But anyways,
Brother Robert.
The brother. I quit. Anyways, they drove ahead of us, and I've been up and down this road at least a dozen times. It's last year and this year included. Never even kind of seen a moose. And we're driving, my wife and I leave, we're driving down the road, there's a car ahead with the hazards on. We're like, what's going on? And so we slow up and everything, we kind of get waved around, we're like, we pull over, and we see his brother Anthony, and he points, and there's a moose in the road. There's a moose walking down the road. I think it was going to the pizza bus. I don't know. So, anyways, there's this moose walking down the road, and I'm like, man, we have been up and down this road, and then it dawned on me, Brother Anthony is the moose whisperer. Yes. He summons the moose, and then later we were traveling down and saw a porcupine.
Oh, yeah.
Not kidding, porcupine heading across the road. I'm like, wow, it's wilderness evening for us. It was really good. I'm excited about getting to preach tonight, but I feel a little pressure because pizza's coming. Right?
Pizza is
No,
here.
that's my own Cornell. That's my own Cornell. So if I'm like reading a text and kind of like looking up out and like, but it's harder because I haven't actually had the pizza, so it may not be like, yeah, just keep preaching. But then it may be like, we didn't get to the invitation. Okay, let's jump in here. 1 Samuel, chapter number 16. We are going to start off at the life of David, and I'm going to present 1 Samuel 16. Hey, I'm going to talk about the life of David, and it may be different from some of the ways you might have heard it. I'm going to tell it the biblical way. What's up? Yeah. You think I'm kidding about that? I'm not. Okay. So, all right. The nation of Israel. Okay, here's my problem. I always give too much background. That's my poison. So I'm always like, I just want to tell the whole story. I'm like, okay, I got to trim this down. The nation of Israel, right? God sets up the Levitical order. That is the order of the priest that is run by the tribe of Levi. Okay? They follow this Levitical order. All right. You come down to Eli and his sons. And at the same time, a lady named Hannah can't have a child, prays. God gives her a child. She gives her first child to the Lord. His name is Samuel. They bring Samuel to the temple, give Samuel to the Lord. Same time, Eli, the priest, is there. He's got his two sons, wicked and wickeder. And so, okay, you use your Bible names like you're I thought this was going to be the Bible version, really. So, anyways, so God, now listen, you got to realize this. A couple things really interesting happened. God basically does away with the Levitical order, not the priest, but of the tribe of Levi, does away with them. Okay? That's what, and that God says, now listen, God told, through Samuel, that's such a, I love that, but that's just weird, that God told the child, okay, but, anyways, so God tells the child, and Eli says, hey, what the Lord tell you? Don't lie to me. And he says, well, God said that he's going to get rid of you, basically. And that's an awkward conversation. But pray you never have to have that with your mom, dad, or youth director, all right? Listen, the Lord talked to me last night. You're out of here. God said, now listen, this is what God told him. He said, I'm going to do something in Israel that when it's heard, it will cause people's ears to tingle who hear it. That's how bad it's going to be. And so God does what he says he's going to do. Boy, the Ark of the Covenant is taken. the two pretend priests are killed, and Eli, being a heavy man, because he was probably a Baptist preacher. Anyways, he falls over backwards, and now Samuel is going to become, believe it or not, the nation's first prophet and priest. There's a couple types that are filled. Not all of the types, because he wasn't king, but some of the types of Christ are fulfilled in Samuel. Samuel's raised up the nation of Israel. Now you think the nation would come to Samuel and say, "Oh, Samuel, go to the Lord for us. We want the ark back, right? We want the things of God back." No, that's not what they said. They came to Samuel and said, "We want a king. We want to be like the other nations," is what they said. They didn't say, "Hey, where are the things of God?" Now, when they lost them, they were all heartbroken, but not enough to want them back.
Right.
Anyways, so then God gives them a king, Saul, head and shoulders above every other man in Israel. We'll go into all that. And finally, he does his own thing, and so God rejects him. And then we enter 1 Samuel chapter number 16. Okay? Verse number 1, "And the Lord said unto Samuel, How long wilt thou mourn for Saul, seeing I have rejected him from reigning over Israel?" Hey, Samuel really did care about Saul.
Right.
Yeah.
He really did care about him. Sometimes we lose the humanity of these stories. "Fill thine horn with oil and go, and I will send thee to Jesse the Bethlehemite, for I have provided me a king among his sons." So from here, and I'll kind of step forward a little bit, Samuel is concerned because he's telling the Lord, "Hey, if Saul finds out what I'm up to, he's going to be all kinds of angry." And he says, "Well, hey, we'll go there and have a sacrifice and invite Jesse and his sons to the sacrifice, and I'll tell you what you should do when you get there." This is one of the areas. Now, Sunday school teachers, be responsible here. This is how it goes. Right here, here it is. "Well, Samuel went down to Jesse's house." You ever heard the story?
Right.
Went down to Jesse's house and to anoint his boys. That's not what the Bible says.
Right.
He went to sacrifice and invited Jesse and his sons to the sacrifice. We are not at Jesse's house.
Right. No, that's right.
I'm sorry, your flannel graph had inconsistencies. And the reason I'm a little snarky about it is it's not like that's buried in the Greek or Hebrew. It's pretty obvious, and I feel like lazy Sunday school teachers and other people are reading off some curriculum somewhere, never took the time to open the book and just read the context because, well, I don't need the first few verses. That's not a part of my lesson. In the right spirit. In the right spirit. I'm working on it. I can just feel it coming, Brother Dave. Come on in, bro. What's up? Woo! All right. So Samuel comes, right? He's at the sacrifice. I mean, everybody's at the sacrifice, and I don't have time to get into it, but it's really cool. They had a lot of respect/fear for Samuel.
Yeah, right.
They're like, comest thou peaceably? He said peaceably. And so Eliab shows up, right? The oldest of David's boys. And Samuel says, surely the Lord's anointed before me. And we always ding Samuel for this. Whoa, God, what's on the heart? Whoa. Saul, the one he had anointed previously was head and shoulders. Why wouldn't he assume that's the same profile of the next guy? They're just dinging Samuel. He was just doing what he thought. But God said, no. This isn't the people's king, right? This is my king. And I look on the heart. And so, you know the story. They go through the boys, right? And God says, I've not chosen any of these. Samuel's like, okay, let's run them again, right? Okay, all right. Eliab's like, I'm back up now. And I don't know how much they knew. I don't know how much Jesse knew what was going on. We actually don't get that much information about it if we're true to the text. Now we can fill in, and I've heard that message before. But I just like to stay with the Bible if I'm preaching it. Okay. So they go through again. Finally, Samuel, again, I don't know exactly what it looks like, but he's like, these all your kids? This all your boys? And Jesse says, well, there's my youngest, David, but he's back watching the sheep. Okay? And again, we kind of beat up on Jesse, and I have to admit this, I kind of in previous times have beat up on Jesse because, he didn't even think about his youngest son. But as I reread the text, I don't know that he was supposed to be looking for his youngest son. Right, yeah. I don't know how much he understood of what was going on. Right? They were intimidated by Samuel. So he says, well, I got my youngest, David, but he's out watching he's back, not out, because out the house. No, he's back watching the sheep. Samuel's serious about this deal. He says, you know what? We're not going to sit down until he gets back here. Right. Now, how would you like to be one of the older brothers and somebody's making a stink about the youngest? Like, excuse me? Yeah, right. Yeah. And we're going to have everybody stand here until Mav gets here. Yeah. Maverick, right? And we're going to, and there's probably some truth to that, another thing about it. But notice in verse number 9, now I'm going to start walking through some of the text here. Then Jesse, verse number 10, and again, Jesse made 7 of his sons to pass before Samuel. And Samuel said unto Jesse, the Lord hath not chosen these. And Samuel said unto Jesse, are here all thy children? And he said, there remaineth yet the youngest, and behold, he keepeth the sheep. And Samuel said unto Jesse, send and fetch him, for we will not sit down till he come hither. And he sent and brought him in. Now he was ruddy, and withal of a beautiful countenance, and goodly to look to. And the Lord said, arise, anoint him, for this is he. Yeah. Now, let me just point something out real quick, and we'll move, okay? I believe personally at this point that Jesse didn't consider David because Saul had been going through the land picking the men of war, right? And so I don't know how much he knew or how much Samuel shared, but I do think part of Jesse was like, David's not relevant to this situation. Right. He's got his older brothers who have experience. That's why 3 of them end up going off to war with Saul shortly, right? These guys are older, and he says, hey, he just didn't think about David. Now listen to me. Don't be surprised when people don't think much about you because you are a teenager. Yeah. Right. Okay? Yeah. But also remember, that's not what God looks on. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Okay. So, chapter 17. I'm just jump over there. I'm just going to hit a couple spots real quickly. So then you get to 1 Samuel 17. And this gets missed too. And I'm not saying this to be snarky, but I want to just kind of keep key components together, okay? David would end up becoming Saul's armor bearer. Right. That's chapter 16. A lot of things people aren't used to about this text. You got to really read it all together. And then you come over to 1 Samuel 17, verse 15. But David went and returned from Saul to feed his father's sheep at Bethlehem. I don't know. I'm trying to sort through that in my mind. You were the king's armor bearer, right? And now you had a couple things. Samuel shows up. Samuel the prophet dumps oil on your head in the presence of your dad and your 7 older brothers. Now I believe David was humble, but if his brother Dan, I'd be like, you all seeing this? Somebody got an iPhone, quick get this. On the way home, I'm like, hey man, don't let my anointing oil get on you. I don't want to mess up your. That's why God would do that to me. Anyways, so then David, he didn't go home with his brothers. That's not right. But David goes and he's an armor bearer for Saul. Now he returns again. And the reason I say I think David was humble is because he went back to doing what he was doing before everyone came and made a fuss about him. He just went back to taking care of his father's sheep. I don't know about you. I'd have been like, Dad, I don't know if you know this or not, but I'm a big deal. Right? I would tell our teenagers, I'm like, Brother Dan's a big deal. Well, I'm 1 for 2. Think about it. All right. So here, David returns home, and war starts up. 3 of his older brothers head off to war, and you know, again, the story, because I feel like you do have some training. I'm going to jump forward, verse number 26, 1 Samuel chapter 17, verse 26. And David spake to them that stood by him, saying, What shall be done to the man that killeth this Philistine, speaking of Goliath, and taketh away the reproach from Israel? Isn't it interesting what David was focused on and what David was concerned about? The reproach of Israel, the reproach against their God. David was concerned about God and his reputation. For who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he should defy the armies of the living God? Now, who's this joker? Find somebody doing something about it. Now, listen, I don't know if you know this or not, the men of war really don't like that tone. Yeah. Right? When the teenager shows up and goes, who's going to go take care of this guy? Yep. We got to handle our business. Okay. So then, verse 27, and the people answered him after this manner, saying, So shall it be to the man that killeth him, and all this. Now, verse 28. Yeah. And Eliab, his oldest brother. Do you remember Eliab from chapter 16? Yeah. Mr. Passerby, Mr. Keep on going, Mr. Not the Lord's Anointed, right? And he comes, now he's upset. Yeah. Now, I don't know, I have no idea. But it would not be surprising if he had a grudge from chapter 16. It's bad enough Samuel the prophet shows up, dumps anointing oil on your little head, and you're off hanging out with the king and his crew. And now you want to come out to the battleground and tell us we don't know what we're doing. Yeah, come on. And you just go back and let us hang out here and not fight the Goliath. Woo! All right, here we go. So, Eliab's all kinds of ticked. And you know, how many realize family can get at you like nobody else can get at you? They know where to hurt you. And so Eliab comes back, and Eliab, his eldest brother, heard when he spake unto the men, and Eliab's anger was kindled against David. Hey, people can get mad at you, and you're not doing anything wrong. Right. You ever had that? Yeah. Ever had your parents mad at you? They either got a bad report or just whatever, they're just upset about something, right? Well, that happens. And here's David, and Eliab's anger is kindled against him, and he said, why camest thou down hither? Well, I came down hither because Dad told me to. Yeah, right. Right? I'm the cheese delivery man. Read the text, right? And with whom hast thou left, now watch this, and with whom hast thou left those few sheep in the wilderness? Yeah, come on. David wasn't watching a few sheep. Right? Yeah. But brother wants to make sure, there's a couple things here you may not normally get. Number one, you don't watch sheep in wilderness. Right? Open plains. Yeah. And he says, oh, and by the way, this has nothing to do with the battle. He's just taking shots at David. Hey, oh, by the way, where'd you leave those couple sheep Dad left you in charge of out in the wilderness? Who knows where they're at? You just, you just decided, well, I'm tired of watching these sheep. I'm going to go check out the battle. I mean, there's a lot here. He's really jabbing at him. Yeah. But David, verse 29, and David said, well, let me finish off. I know thy pride. Ever have people judge your motives for you? I know what you're doing. I know what you want. I know why you did that. I know why you go to church. And the naughtiness of thine heart, for thou art come down that thou mightest see the battle. And if I'm David, I'm like, well, it looks like I wasted my time because I ain't doing nothing. That's not what the Bible says, though. That's why David was anointed and Brother Dan's reading about it. Woo! All right, here we go, verse 29. And David said, what have I now done? Is there not a cause? I don't think he put the same voice inflection, but you get the point. Listen, David was misunderstood by those around him. They did not understand his heart. They did not understand his motivation. Some of you, listen, if you're going to wait until everybody in your world understands you before you go serve God, you're probably never going to end up serving God. People are not going to understand you. Your classmates aren't going to understand you. Not all your friends will understand you. By the way, your own family probably not going to understand you at times. And that's okay,
Amen.
because we're looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith.
Amen. Yeah.
And not everybody has to understand you all the time. And listen, it's okay.
Yeah.
Let's move forward. So verse 32, and David said to Saul. So finally word gets to Saul. I love this. David shows up. I love this so much. Verse 32, and David said to Saul, let no man's heart fail because of him. Thy servant will go and fight with this Philistine. Man, you got to see this. Saul's here with all the men of war. Saul's head and shoulders above everybody else. And the teenager, David, walks in. A.K.A. Saul's ex-armor bearer.
Right.
You forget that.
Yeah.
Shows up, hey, don't worry about this. Right? You got all the Navy SEALs lining the room with all their gear, all their paraphernalia. You got the Delta Force, the elite. You know, Isaiah's there with his size. I mean, they got everybody there, everybody up in that place. And all of a sudden, right, Gunner comes walking in. Hey, don't worry about it. I got this handle. This is what he says, let no man's heart fail. And it's not even that he says, I'm going to go take care of him. He's like, don't be afraid of him. I'm here. We pretend to read the scriptures, right? And I don't know what you said. See it. See it up here first, because it's there. Now watch this, verse 33. And Saul said to David, thou art not able to go against the Philistine to fight with him. Now, David, you can't do this. Why not? Why can't David go do this? Nobody else is. Look what he said. For thou art but a youth. David, you're just a teenager. You can't do this. David was not attending a self-confidence building seminar. Right? He's like everybody's emotional doormat right now. Sometimes people are going to judge you because of your appearance. Sometimes they're going to judge you because of your inexperience. I'll tell you, David didn't go. He just kept going. Dad really didn't think too much about him. I think Dad loved him. And I think Dad, as a boy, you want to believe in your boy. But I don't think Dad was out in left field because he was like, oh, yeah, David, he's my youngest, right? So, Dad, and even Samuel was like, truly the Lord's anointed for, oh, okay, here he is. All right, okay, well, but it's a lot easier to pour the oil than here. All right, no problem. He goes back, heads out to the battlefield, obeying Dad, doing what he's supposed to be doing, right? Big brother. Not on his side. I know why you're here. I know what you're doing. And then David said, you don't know me. No, I'm just kidding. He never said that, but I kind of wish he would. Then the king, who else can take shots at David? Hell, let's line the king up. You can't fight him. Well, why not? Oh, because you're a teenager. Because you're a teenager. Wow. Oh, by the way, just in case you think we are, Dave's not done getting tongue lashing. Right, we haven't finished yet. So David makes his way out to the battlefield. Saul gives him his armor. Hey, can I just take just a little rest stop kind of detour here? Don't go fight your problems with armor that other people themselves aren't willing to use.
Come on.
Now, you take my armor. Yeah, it's all shiny. There's not a grass stain one on this thing, right? There's not a ding. The only thing it's been is polished, right? I don't know if I'm all excited about your armor. You say, well, Brother Dan, all I got is a slingshot. Yeah, but if you've actually done something with it.
Come on.
David said, hey, there was a lion, there was a bear that came against me, your servant killed him. I've actually fought some battles. Do you realize some of you as teenagers go, man, you have no idea what I've been through. Was it a lion? Was it a bear? Why would God let a lion and a bear in David's life? Doesn't God love him? Doesn't God care about him? No, God was preparing him.
Right.
Why does the lion and bear get into your life? Because God's big enough to help you kill them.
Yeah, good. Amen.
You think it's a big insult, like God abandoned you. God gave you a compliment. God thinks you're strong enough to handle it with him.
Amen. Good.
That's who David was looking to.
Amen.
So David gets out on the battlefield, verse 42, and when the Philistine, Goliath, looked about and saw David, he disdained him, for he was but a youth and ruddy and of a fair countenance. Now listen, the only thing bigger on that battlefield than Goliath was his ego. Right? Like, if somebody takes me out and beats me at hockey tonight, there's no bragging points for that, right? Right? Like, and I can skate a little, but I mean, no. But if you show up and beat everybody in the NHL and then go destroy everybody in Stanley Cup, you're a pretty good person, right? You're a pretty good hockey player. You got some bragging rights. Goliath had beat all the other champions amongst the Philistines, a warring people. That's what Saul said.
Right.
Goliath has brothers, right? They'll end up getting taken care of later. He's got nasty brothers, big guys.
Yeah.
Goliath is the best of the best.
Right.
And that's why he came out. He's so arrogant. He came out and said, "Hey, send me one of you guys, and we'll just battle, see who's the winner." I mean, he knew there's no losing. And by the way, he was so convincing, all of the Israelites were like, and if you read the story thoroughly, you're going to find out some of the Israelites have already abandoned their nation and gone to the other side. Right? It's true. When you find out, when they kind of go and attack the Philistines, that some of the Israelites who were with them turn on them. I mean, this was not the Israelites were not a warring people, man. The Philistines were the ruling power of the day, and now they've got their champion out there, and their champion's out there coming out regularly for over a month. Hey, where's your guy? What's up? You know, come on down and fight. And all of a sudden, David comes tromping on. Hey, David doesn't even have armor on. And I think the Philistine, personally, I think the guy's just straight insulted. He's like, did they send the water boy? And he disdained him. He disdained him. He said, what is this? Because his ego, man, he was angry. There's a lot of people angry at poor David. David, what did you do wrong? Last I checked, I was trying to serve the Lord. Don't be surprised when not everybody's excited about you just wanting to serve the Lord.
Right.
Well, the world shouldn't work this way. Hey, you're not the first person to deal with difficulty just because you're trying to do what's right. We act like that sometimes. And then verse 43, and the Philistine said unto David, am I a dog that thou comest to me with staves, meaning like a stick? And the Philistine cursed David by his gods. I love this because he did curse him by his gods, but you'll notice his gods has a small g. Verse number 44, and the Philistine said to David, come to me, and I will give thy flesh unto the fowls of the air and to the beasts of the field. I don't know, some 10-foot tall dude with huge, I mean, he's got a guy carrying his shield in front of him. I mean, this guy, if I was going to go up against Goliath, I'd really want like a tank or something. And he says, okay, fine. You're going to come to me like I'm a dog? Fine. He said, bring it on, boy. He said, when I'm done with you, I'm going to feed your flesh to the birds and to the animals. Hey, this isn't even part of my message, but I'm going to read it because I love it. Verse 45. Amen. Then said David to the Philistine, thou comest to me with a sword and with a spear and with a shield, but I come to thee in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of the armies of Israel, whom thou hast defied. This day will the Lord deliver thee into mine hand. I will smite thee and take thine head from thee. I will give the carcasses of the host of the Philistines this day unto the fowls of the air and to the wild beasts of the earth, that all the earth may know that there is a God in Israel. Dang! David can talk some trash. Goliath's like, hey, I'm going to feed you the birds. David comes out and says, I'm going to take your head off your shoulders and get it. He didn't say, I'm going to feed your carcass.
Yeah, right.
He said, I'm going to feed all y'all's carcasses. That's the plural. That's the plural. Now, I don't know. I wish I could have this insight. Maybe when I get to heaven I will. But I got to feel like there was just like a little tiny part of Goliath that was like, all right. You know, like, oh, I got pause to think about what he just said. You know, the armor, but the shield guy was like, let's just hope he's crazy. Right? Okay, Sunday school teachers, I got to move forward, but Sunday school teachers, back to me. David ran at Goliath.
Right. That's right. Yeah.
I'm tired of these flannel graphs. He's like 8 blocks away. That's how I would have fought it, right? David was all in. That's why some of you aren't winning battles, because you're trying to chuck godly boulders from a block and a half away, and you're not willing to get into the battle and just all in this thing.
Good. Come on now.
David just ran full force in him. There was no turning back, but David had no backup plan.
Good. Wow.
Too many of us have backup plans.
Yeah.
Well, if this Christian thing doesn't work out, I just go back to my friends and just go back to this. I go back to this relationship. I go back to that. David was all in, man. That's the message I preached. He was all in. I love it. Okay. Now, time for the message. You think I'm kidding too. 1 Timothy chapter number 4. 1 Timothy chapter number 4. A verse that probably a lot of you can quote, but I promise you'll probably read it a little differently now that we've spent a little time. 1 Timothy chapter number 4 and verse number 12. Let no man despise thy youth, but be thou an example of the believers, in word, in conversation, in charity, in spirit, in faith, in purity. The Apostle Paul is being used of God to pen a letter through the inspiration of God to a young man named Timothy. This is not just any boy. This is a young man who's been raised in the Scriptures. Very important. Though he's young, like David, he already has experience in the Word of God. Paul is writing to Timothy, and Timothy, now listen, Timothy is a leader.
Right, yeah.
Timothy is a young leader. And so Paul says to Timothy, now Timothy, let no man despise thy youth. And I'm just going to take a little bit of this and we're going to walk through this here.
Amen.
Let no man despise thy youth. Now understand, this is not personal. This is not specific to any of the characteristics of Timothy. He didn't say, hey, Timothy, don't let people, despise your accent. Timothy, don't let people despise your red hair. He didn't have either of those, I'm just saying. But he says, Timothy, let no man despise thy youth. He's talking about the elements of youth. Now, I want you to think for a minute, and I might even let you raise your hand if you promise not to talk out of turn. Never happened, but we'll try. What is it about youth that people might despise? Sarah, what's up?
They haven't had enough experience, and they might be just, hey, I'm still able to do whatever I want, and no one will be able to tell me what to do.
Right. They lack experience. Maybe they don't listen. We've heard about that before. Another case, I'm sure. Past failures, yeah. Some of that. Lack of maturity. So specifically, Josh, you lack of maturity. What's an indication of a lack of maturity? Hey, Josh, if you say it, I'm not offending everyone. So it's safer for me to have you say it. You're basically my messenger of death. It just makes me, I'm a nice guy, Josh is a jerk. But he does make a good point. You're doing the dirty work. Can you think of anything? You don't have to.
Dodging responsibility.
Oh, dodging responsibility. Okay. You guys, I gotta get like next time I get like a preacher cam because you get to see stuff you don't get to see. My boy Josh is like lack of dodging responsibility. Like 4 guys around him are all like, Thank you for the testimonial and the witness. Lack of character on behalf of my boy Josh. Okay, so over here. Yes. Yeah, they do that when you raise your hand.
Okay. So probably because sometimes, and I'm not judging any adults.
Okay.
Okay. So sometimes older people will be like stuck up and will like think, younger people are stupid.
Just because older people are stuck up. Keep growing and let me know as that changes. But hey, adults, it's good to listen because we get perspective and we need that side note. Aurora?
So despising the youth, some people don't think that younger children or little people won't be able to understand.
Okay, maybe you don't understand. And I like how you not only included teenagers, but little people. I like that. That's good. There's some shorter people who be like, hey, what about us? Okay, let's rein it back in. Don't need you to expound the text. I'll work on that. But what is it about youth that people despise? Not why do they, but what is it, Dan?
The lack of taking responsibility.
Lack of taking responsibility.
Something from my own personal life that they're right.
They're right. Okay, teenagers and younger, you're done. Older people, what is it about you? Now listen, we've heard your answers, and they've just been incredible. But now we're going to listen to older people who are biased, obviously. Let's hear what older people have to say. What is it about youth that people despise? We're talking in general, okay? In general, youth in general, okay? It may not be you. Robert?
Slow to listen, quick to talk.
They're quick to talk and don't listen. They feel like they already have all the answers.
Amen.
I don't need to listen to you, old person. I already got it. I'm like 12 teen. I can count to purple. Did you tell me what's up? Woo! Okay. Miss Paula?
I know that when I was young, I messed up, so I was going to expect the same of them.
Say that again. You messed up in.
I know when I was young, I messed up, so I will just expect the same of them.
Right.
That's
Hey,
good, Paula.
we measure you by our own teen years.
Right.
Right? That's good, Miss Paula. That's really good. Hey, you guys need to go by and thank her. She reps for you big time. Over in the back.
That they're willing to do things that adults won't, so it almost shames us.
Oh, well this got dark quick. Here we go.
They see what they want now, so tunnel vision, they don't see the end result.
Don't see the end result? Okay, it's
They
good.
don't see
The missed opportunity.
Missed opportunity? Okay, what else? You don't know what you despise about youth, really, guys? You gonna ban me like that? I gotta be the henchman? Okay, listen, I'll be real. That's fine. Or Brother Dave, you want to just join me?
They can be dishonest. Right?
They can be dishonest. Let me just. As youth, I'm not here to hurt you. I'm not mad at you. Okay? But this is a reality nobody's talking about. As youth, you came out of the childhood years. Childhood years are all about learning how to do basic survival on planet Earth. You don't know how to feed yourself. You don't know how to clothe yourself. You don't know all these things. The teenage years, adolescent years, come about self-discovery and this kind of self-awareness, and then also how that self-awareness ties in with the rest of the planet. One of the biggest problems about teenagers is you're only conscious of your universe.
That's right. That's good, brother.
So you never think about the fact that you smell. I'm serious. There's no consciousness that other people are going to find your breath or your BO offensive. You're not conscious of it. Right? You're used to your world. And you go, oh, you're just talking down to me. No, I'm not. I'm telling you the truth. I'm not your enemy because I tell you the truth. I have no vindictive nature in my heart. I work with teenagers. Think about it. I fly up to Alaska, just how ticked the teenager and want to take it out on somebody. Although that kind of sounds good. Okay? Teenager, I'll prove it to you. Many young people are just not aware of how the rest of the world is. How many times at this camp have I been talking to another adult and a teenager came and interrupted us right in the middle of a conversation and just bursted in?
Right.
I'm not offended by that because you're not conscious
Yes.
that two people were having a conversation prior to your entrance into it.
Yes.
Right? You're not conscious of your volume level. I'm 2 feet away. I don't need you screaming at me. You're not aware of it. Listen, and if you'll open yourself, if you won't get hurt about it, you'll open yourself up to it, you'll find out that you'll learn those things like all of us learned it. All of us learned it at some point. But listen, and I'm going to cry for you, most of us learned it by, hey, shut up!
Yeah, right.
That's how most of us learned it. A lot of people in this room grew up with children who are heard or seen and not heard.
Right. Yes.
So just because some adults like, hey, calm down, you're like, oh, they're oppressing me. Oh, yeah, right. you all of a sudden you're not aware of your volume level, right?
Yeah.
How close you are to somebody, all of these things. There's just an inexperience of life and a discovery process that is in order. And so listen, not many people expect much of teenagers because they struggle with responsibility. They think they already have stuff figured out because you have learned a lot. You've already learned a lot. You really have. But it doesn't mean learning's done. There's more to take on. There's more to do. And so when people think of who's going to save the nation? Rarely are people going to say, where are the teenagers at? Now, hold on. But Paul knows those are general things about teenagers. 2 Timothy 2:22, flee thou youthful lust.
Right.
Teenagers have a distinct, you haven't grown through life. Well, let me take you to a passage here, and I'm going to show this to you, but you have not been burned enough by sin, so you're still easily deceived by sin. Oh, that's not true, Brother Dan. I'm talking about teenagers in general. There's inevitably you're at a camp, you're preaching, some kids the rare exception, and they want to come meet you after the service and let you know, I am the exception to the rule. And you just proved my point. Thank you, sir. Okay. Proverbs 7. You want to venture over there real quick? Proverbs 7. Proverbs chapter number 7. And this is a interesting passage here. Proverbs chapter number 7. And look at verse number 6. Wisdom is speaking here, and this is what it says. For at the window of my house I looked through my casement and beheld among the simple ones.
Yeah, right.
Teenagers often, not always, but teenagers are referred to simple ones.
Right.
Simple doesn't mean that you can't learn, that you've never learned anything. It doesn't mean that. Simple means inexperienced. Right? So, I might have told the story last year, I don't know. I had a teenager. We had a couple couples in our youth group that had kind of been off and on for like last year. Their relationship was there was always drama because it's teen relationships, and I don't endorse them, but at the same time, I also don't act like they don't exist. Right? Because that's just a waste too. I may not approve it, but I may acknowledge it, right? So there's these couples, and this one guy he's like 16, something like that. He's never, ever had a relationship with a girl. Never even really had a crush on a girl. And there's this one girl that he really starts talking to, and they kind of like each other, and all of a sudden, within like a week, they're going out. Okay, whatever that means. And so I kind of see him hanging out, and youth directors, sometimes we're the first to get it, but sometimes we're last. The first should be last, but so anyways, that's not a good application. So I go to him and I say, hey, what's going on with you and so-and-so? And he's like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm laughing because I'm reliving the conversation. His face, he was just so serious, it's a teenager, Brother Dan, this is real. Is it now?
No.
He's not a guy's been married for a decade, this is real. And then he gets a little arrogant. He says, Brother Dan, this isn't like those guys' relationships. Right? This is real. This is going to last. But what he should have said, if he was going to be accurate, is, Brother Dan, this thing got about 2 weeks. 2 weeks. I see Mopey, Dumpy, Grumpy heading around the properties. What's up, bro? Now I didn't go and pour salt in the wound, even though I wanted to, and I'm hoping to get some kind of reward in heaven for that, because that felt like a sacrifice. Not to just be like, hey player, how's eternal love going? Because last I checked, the milk in my fridge lasted longer than your relationship. Yeah, and I did not say that. I was right. Now, do you know why? He was so confident about his relationship. He never had one. He never had one. And it doesn't make him bad, and it doesn't make him stupid. He was just simple in that area of his life. He had no experience, and he had no way to really accurately read the situation or the feelings he was feeling. And don't be all bent out of shape when people who've been married longer than you've been alive don't take your high school crush as the eternal flame. And adults is all arrogant. You don't care. Maybe we've been on the planet a little bit longer. And by the way, maybe we went through some stupid stuff.
Yes.
Maybe we had some crushes that turned out not crushes, or crushes that crushed us, you know? Sometimes we know because we were you.
That's right.
Stop making adults like they're aliens from another planet. We're old yous. That's what we are. That's why we shower and brush our teeth and stuff like that now. I discerned amongst the, now watch this, verse 7, I beheld among the simple ones, I discerned among the youths a young man void of understanding.
That's good.
Void of understanding. Now this is a problem. As a teenager, you don't have to be void of understanding. This guy was. He got into some stuff. Listen. Teenager, guys or girls, you pick up your phone, something pops up there, and you're like, oh, that's appealing. I'm going to start clicking on it. I'm just going to tell you point blank, you're void of understanding.
Yeah.
You have no idea the demons you're now putting in your head.
That's right. Yeah.
You got no idea the road you're walking down.
Yep.
And you're not even, no offense, you're not even smart enough or aware enough to realize this might be bad for me.
Yeah, that's right.
You're smart enough to know if I handled you, a thing of alcohol and say, here, start drinking this, you're like, whoa, I don't want to go down that road. But all of a sudden something pops up on the internet, some girl blinks her eyes at you at school, and now you're headed down that path.
Right.
Thank you, Brother Dan. You spend your high school years all messed up in drama about this girl and that girl, or this guy and that guy, and you're going to waste some of the best years of your life because you've never thought about, where's this going to take me? I spent all my teen years wasted on drama. And where's it going to take me? What's it going to do to my friendships? What's it going to do to my parents? Right? And so, listen, when the Bible says, let no man despise thy youth, believe it or not, nobody likes to admit it, but there's some reasons why people just don't like youth a whole lot. I would be willing to go back and get some youth in my life, but I'm not willing to go back and not have the knowledge I now have. I'm not doing that. No, thank you. Okay, I'll just deal with gray hairs and nose hairs and whatever else. Okay, I don't want to go back. No, won't go back. Okay, hey, welcome back. Sorry, Brother Dan. You know I love you. You know I love you. So he says here, verse 12, let no man despise thy youth. Now listen, how are you going to get adults to not despise your youth? And now I will answer the question because it was rhetorical. Go and learn ye what this means. That's so mean. So Paul says, let no man despise thy youth, but be thou an example of the believer. He's actually telling you how. David proved he was not just another youth. The Bible says later that he behaved himself wisely. Now I'm gonna tell you this. Here's one of the coolest things about the teen years. It is so easy to stand out in a good way.
You're right.
I mean, you're primed to shine. I'm serious. I'm not trying to hurt anybody's feelings. You show up and you've showered, brushed your teeth, combed whatever hair you have, whatever direction it's supposed to go, or you prefer, clothes match and fit, and you don't bust into conversations at octave 10, adults are going to go, now wait a minute. Like Saul at the end of chapter 16, and again at the end of chapter 17. Now, who's this, whose kid is this? Whose kid is this?
Come on now, come on.
Yes.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, the old people, instead of disdaining you for your youth, are now recognizing that you stand out amongst the youth.
Come on. Yes.
Oh, I'm pretty sure I heard a message on that recently. 10 times better. You wanna stand out 10 times from others?
Yeah.
Be an example.
Good. Yes.
Be an example. Listen, if you're going to grow quicker, then that means you have to be open to learning. And I'm not saying, now listen. He's not saying, be thou an adult.
Right.
I'm not for that.
No.
Well, I got to go out, I got to get a relationship, I got to get a job, I got to start being it, because that's what Brother Dan wants. No. No. Somebody here ought to have fun. It's not going to be me. Well, I have fun in my work, but so you might as well go have some fun. But be a youth, but be an example.
Good.
Yeah.
You're looking at me like, what? Do you believe God can use you to be an example to other people of what a Christian life should look like?
No, no. That's good.
I mean, you're from what I know, your youth ministry and your bus ministry and all these ministries, you have people coming to your ministry who are young people regularly.
Right. Well,
And you have some people coming who have no idea what a Christian is supposed to look like, act like, talk like, anything.
well, yes.
And they're going to show up in your ministry and they're going to see us old people and go, well, I'm not going to be anything like them. So they're going to look around, they're going to say, well, what does a Christian look like?
Yeah, come on. Yeah.
Good.
Now listen, just because you have a church with a youth group doesn't mean we have any Christian examples.
Right.
This doesn't happen on accident.
Yes.
This happens when a young person says, you know what, I want to be an example to the best of my ability. Now listen to me, he did not say, be thou perfect.
Right. Yeah.
He never said that.
That's right.
Some of you get discouraged when you get knocked down. You got to learn to get back up.
Amen.
Don't you think that's what a believer would do? Don't you think that's a good example
Good.
to get back up? Be thou an example of the believer. So that somebody can say, hey, that's what a Christian looks like. Again, I'm sorry, I don't know. I know some of the sermons I preached last year, but I don't remember every illustration that I used. But my first time going to Christian camp, I was 13 years old. Not long before going to camp for the first time, now I've always been a huge fan of technology. And then some of this is going to make you laugh. When I was a teenager, compact discs, aka CDs, had just come out to the mainstream. I worked with my dad doing construction for an entire week to raise up $100 and something to go to Target and buy a CD player. It was the size of a VCR. That's how big they originally were. And that's for, you go, oh yeah, it was a 6-player. No. Press a little button, one little tray comes out. And my mom and my dad didn't know it, but there was also a super controversial music CD that had just come out. And it, I admit to my sin, it was vile. Son, it was vile. And I bought that thing. Just because I was like, man, I want to have something to listen to on my CD player. Everybody's making a fuss about it. It was in the news. It was so bad. And I got this thing, and here I am. I look back like, what a loser. But I'm sitting, in like these days, you know, you can have half an earbud in, and nobody even knows you got Bluetooth going from your pocket. I mean, nobody knows what's up. to listen to this CD, I can't carry around my, and by the way, it's not an amplifier.
Right.
It's just the CD player. So I had a stereo on top of it connected to it, and because I couldn't listen to it and let my parents know, I had headphones on. Headphones were roughly the size of a motorcycle helmet back then. So here I am, down in my room, sitting, and I can't walk around my room and do anything. Anytime I want to listen to it, I had to sit next to the stereo with these big headphones on. But man, I was cool listening to CD. And last night's sermon, you may not realize last night's sermon was just a big chunk of my testimony. I was doing bad things, therefore God was mad at me, and I never looked to have any kind of relationship with God because I was saved, but I knew God was mad at me, which was not right. Listen to last night's sermon.
Yes.
So I head off to Christian camp. I don't want to go to camp. My mom made me. Me and one friend goes to camp. There's like, I don't know, there's a ton of people there. There's like 300-400 people. There's a bunch of churches. We go to camp. I don't want to go to camp. I'm listening to stuff that if my parents found out, they'd have a heart attack and or beat me. Right? And so I don't want to go to camp and be around a bunch of people who are trying to serve God because I'm going to stand out like sore thoughts. So I get to camp, and I'm just like, I don't know anybody, and oh, son, one, you may not realize this or even believe it, at age 13, 14, I was a huge introvert, didn't want to be around people, but I love basketball. I just started playing basketball a couple years prior. And so they have basketball courts, so I just headed on down to the basketball courts. I thought, I'll just get through the week playing some basketball. I wasn't trying to make friends. I wasn't trying to be around anybody because these are all Christian kids, all the goody-goodies. That's how I viewed it. Forgive me. Be around all the goody-goodies, and I preached to them. And I headed on down there, and I'm just shooting some hoops. So a bunch of kids come down. We're playing basketball, shooting around everything, passing the ball, all this other stuff. As we're shooting hoops, some of these other kids start humming some stuff. And I recognize what they're humming because I've been listening to it on my jumbo headphones. And I went, now listen, wait a minute. I thought Christian kids didn't listen to that kind of stuff. I got this whole thing backwards. All these kids are like me. They just say they're a Christian and then do whatever they want. And after that, I had a lot of friends at camp. Do you know why I got that impression, which is totally inaccurate? Because that was the example that was given to me. Oh, we're all at Christian camp. That doesn't mean nothing to nobody. And especially as you get older, I know I got a younger group, but I'm going to tell you this, as you get older, you can say stuff in front of counselors and they don't understand what you're talking about. You can hum a lyric, say a lyric, this, that, or the other, reference a show, reference a relationship, reference stuff they don't know it about, and they can be within earshot. You're cool because you got the teen language going on. But the problem is other teens know it too,
Right.
And you're an example to them.
It's good.
And it's just a big game. And Paul says to Timothy, let no man despise thy youth. Don't let people get caught up in your age and the things of youth. What should stand out about you is the example you are as a Christian. I like that.
Good.
I like that. I hope lost people come to your church to get saved, but I hope they take note of your teenagers. And you may not realize it, as much as it sounds like I'm picking on you guys. Believe it or not, I take notice of you guys too. I say, boy, those are some Christian people. Maybe not everybody, but because I don't know you. If I did, I'm sure that'd be the case. But boy, there's some young people here. I'm like, wow, look at that. I'm just, a matter of fact, when we were at church on Sunday, I've met some people who aren't even teenagers yet. And I was like, wow. Not that they're so talented and so amazing, but there was just something about them that they really, you could tell they cared about God and the things of God. You still love Brother Jay. while I'm preaching this message, some of you have soaked in every single word. Every time I come around and look, you're staring right at me. You're writing notes. You know, you're an example of living.
Good. Amen. Good.
Others of you, I haven't been able to get your attention since I started.
Right.
Because you're just a
Yeah.
I'm not mad at you.
Come on, man. Come on.
But you're acting
Good.
Amen. Amen.
I'm not trying to hurt you. I'm not here to put you down. Okay? I don't want to stack your maturity against mine at that age. I don't want to do that either. Okay? Okay. You're like, well, excuse me, unless I don't have jumbo headphones. I'm with you. I'm on your side. Okay? I just feel like we don't know what we're shooting at as teenagers. We got to work through our youth. And that's okay. This is what these years are about. You think you feel bad being a teenager who acts like a teenager? When you come to work with some of these guys and meet their adult coworkers who act like teenagers, that's annoying,
Yeah.
right? You're like, really, dude?
Yeah.
You're 34, not 4.
Yeah. Well, no.
You go, well, if that's the case, Brother Dan, why are you saying all this stuff? Because I don't want you to settle for just being the norm. You settle for just being you.
Amen.
Come on.
You be the best you can be. You represent Christ.
Right. Amen.
Be thou an example.
Amen.
And you don't have to listen. You don't have to go on and chasing everybody by being an example. Now, let me close up here, okay? If you say, okay, Brother Dan, don't leave me hanging. How do I become an example? I would love to preach that next message, but not right now, okay? But you can actually look, just read the rest of the text, and not the rest of the verse only, but the rest of the text. He tells Timothy how to do that.
Right, yeah.
So much of it has to do with being spirit-filled, being a student of the Word. A lot of this, what you guys already are. Somebody, I think it was my wife, somebody said this, I don't know who this was. Whoever said this, you're really smart, and I love it. As a teenager, right, as a Christian teenager, you don't have a lot of the baggage that your parents had as teenagers.
Right.
And you've got a lot of knowledge that they never had until they were older. Right? But the problem is, if you don't ever decide to do anything with it, it serves you no better than your parents who didn't have it in the first place.
That's true.
You've got an opportunity, you've got an advantage. Be thou an example of the believer. Well, that girl's mean to everybody. So what should she be? Why don't you show us?
Yeah.
Amen.
Right?
Yeah.
Man, that guy's language, his mind's filthy. Well, what's a teen guy's mind supposed to look like? How are you supposed to treat people? You know, do you let them drown in the lake? Or do you just roll them by, you know? I'm just teasing you guys. I'm just teasing you guys, man. I just can't. I should have let that go by. Just like a teen. Okay. We're going to pick up tomorrow. But let me just say this. Now listen, I want you to think about what you think a Christian looks like. And ask yourself, do I look anything like that?
Good, man. Come on now.
Okay? The second thing I want you to think about, this isn't preached a lot, but it should be. I want you, and I'm not, Brittany, I'm not against you, okay? Because if I was against you, I would just pick on you and not say anything to help. I want some of you, starting today, after I preach this, I want you to start thinking, there's a world and there are people outside of my world.
Right.
And I'm going to start paying attention. And this is what, I'm going to talk about this tomorrow afternoon session, but some of you explode into conversations, say something that's half there, and then you're gone like the wind, or until somebody shushes you and pulls the leash back, you know. And here's what bothers me about it. You're going to conclude they don't want to talk to you. And that's completely wrong.
Yeah.
I totally want to talk to you.
Amen.
But if I'm talking to Brother Dave and you just barge in and I ignore him and talk to you, I'm being rude to Brother Dave.
Amen.
Right? And I don't want to talk at full volume because a lot of people don't enjoy that.
Right.
Now, there may be a hard-to-hear person who so appreciates you. For the rest of the planet, that's not. And my hearing sensitive because I wore huge headphones. Right? So, listen, we don't want you to not talk to us, but we want you to learn how to come and join a conversation and be a part of it like you want to be a part of it, and it not be so painful. And listen, there are very few people in your life who love you enough to just sit with you and be patient with you through this process.
Yes.
And these people surrounding you are those people.
Amen.
They love you so much they put up with you. Because I want to tell you, we live in a society that's either using teenagers
Yeah.
or ignoring.
Right.
Amen.
And to have people who say, I've had a couple of young people come and tell me jokes. And I listen to them, and I enjoy it. Because I actually want to hear from you. Right? But I also, now listen, I also want you to work on growing up.
Right.
Be thou an example
Yes.
of the believer,
Yeah.
even as he is. Let's pray. Father, we love you so much. Thank you for this time.